Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, podcast by a UFO nerd, his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd. Hang on. Are we even talking about this today? You said you wanted to talk about a thing that wasn't UFOs.
Okay, here's the thing, audience. So I sat down on Friday to do my show notes like normal. We took a week off because Chuck was traveling. He had some family stuff. And it was great. Let me tell you, the week when I normally do show prep came up and I had a new video game to play and I did that instead. And it was awesome.
Wait, what are you playing right now?
Death Stranding 2,
Awesome.
which
Okay.
I could devote a whole podcast to, but
Okay.
I'm not going to. So Friday, I sat down to do show prep as normal. And as I normally do, I look over the giant pile of UFO related links that I've been saving in the last few weeks to see kind of like what's the hot topic?
Yeah.
What do we want to talk about this week? And the big picture story at the moment is the Wall Street Journal put out an article about UFOs. And Chuck, I don't know if you remember the bit in The Simpsons where Homer goes into it was like modeled on the shop from Gremlins. You know, the weird old man selling, we sell cursed minerals. We also sell frozen yogurt.
Exactly.
Oh, that's good.
No, that's bad.
It comes with your choice of toppings. That's good. The toppings are also cursed. That's bad.
Yes.
This Wall Street Journal was like that. Like, hey, a mainstream media organization talking seriously about the UFO issue. That's good. The primary source in the article was Sean Kirkpatrick.
Yeah. Okay. That's bad.
Yeah, that's bad. And here's the thing. We could have easily spun an episode up about this. There's a whole conversation to have that basically boils down to, and we've done this before, the Pentagon talked to a major news organization, and the conclusion is nothing to see here. And here's why I, a random guy on the internet, think that's a load of bullshit.
Right.
But you should take me seriously because here's the list of replies, responses, and sources I have found that lead me to think that this is a cover-up or misinformation or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, though.
It's a lot of work, and it's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's not fun to talk about. It's like, hey, let's try to take down the latest attempt by the government to conceal this, brush it under the rug. Like, I don't even know what to call it. Calling it a cover-up is a little too grand.
Yeah.
It's more like, no, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Like, just straight up lying to our face. The most obvious response to it is, everything in this article is talking about like this supposed program that was like a disinformation op run on Americans, and in particular like a hazing ritual on the Air Force, and this weird claim they made that like the Malmstrom incident where UFOs shut down nukes was actually a test being run on an EMP that for some reason they ran on a live nuclear missile silo without telling the people like nothing about the article makes sense. It would not have been particularly hard to take down, but it's just depressing. And I was really struggling with it, and like, hey, what's the name of our show?
It's a very exciting time.
It's a very exciting time. I'm not excited to talk about this. And I realized we've done a number of episodes lately that I was doing because this was the story, but it wasn't exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like, we did a whole episode on the Cybertruck bomber.
Yeah.
We did an episode on Brown, his like weird Twitter post and, occult meanings in it. And these were all kind of fun to talk about, but when we got started, it was like, I want to tell Chuck about Anjali, this woman who claims to have found an alien ship buried in the desert, and she's mounting an expedition to go there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a fun story.
Yeah.
When David Grush came out, talking about David Grush, that's an exciting story.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Like, this is a whistleblower with, like, national intelligence certifications, and he's talking about what he found. Even more recently, recently, the Jake Barber and the
Yeah.
Skywatcher guys.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
this
cool.
is exciting stuff. But we've landed on this thing where we try to put out an episode every 2 weeks, and there's not always an exciting story. But here's the thing. I've been kind of like poisoned by being a UFO enthusiast who grew up in the 80s and 90s, because for all of the 80s and 90s, there was effectively zero UFO news.
Right.
There was like Stephen Greer's thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
like there really wasn't UFO news. And now we live in an age with like an embarrassment of riches. Like a major congressman has hired David Grush as his like guide to help him dig into these secrets. That's exciting.
Yeah.
There's a congressional task force, admittedly maybe not the A team that I would have picked, but there are people on Congress who are openly and actively pursuing this. There is an official Pentagon office dedicated to looking into UFOs. Admittedly, they spend most of their time trying to debunk it, but still, we've gone from nothing to see here to, there's something to see here, but like, don't worry about it, which is a weird position.
Totally.
And we've spent 2.5 years talking about it.
God, has it been?
But I think it kind of sucked me into this thing of like, because there's always something happening, and there wasn't growing up, I feel silly being like, oh, there's nothing really exciting to talk about this week. But I don't like doing an episode that's like, hey, here's the latest episode about Congress kind of almost sort of doing something about UFOs.
Yeah.
And I don't want to shit on those efforts. I don't want to make it sound like it's a bummer. But you can only talk about the UAP Disclosure Act failing to pass so many times.
Yeah.
We can only talk about the drones in New Jersey that were unexplained so many times.
Are they still up there?
How many times? I don't think they are still up there. It seems to have ended. Here's the thing. It is not the case that there is nothing to talk about. But I think it is the case that there's not always something exciting to talk about on a 2-week schedule.
Right, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So,
and
do we need to slow down or take a break for a while and focus only in on the non-bummers, or what are you thinking?
Right. So this brings me to kind of like the revelation I had. So I called Chuck up. I was like, man, I'm like, and this has been going on for a while. Like, I've really been struggling with motivation to do the show prep. I love having a UFO podcast. I love recording the podcast. I love talking to my buddy about UFOs.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite parts of the week. Like, it's awesome. But I have somehow ended up, as I do with all of my hobbies, turning it into a job. What I need to do to feel confident talking to my buddy about UFOs with an audience is prepare a research paper every 2 weeks with like quotes and citations. And like, there was a time when I would joke to Chuck, like, oh man, I put like 6 hours into this one. That's a lot. And I kind of stopped saying anything about it because that kind of became the minimum.
Yeah.
And some of them are more.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. That's not sustainable. My weekends are gone.
Yeah.
And I want to keep doing this, but I don't think the way we're doing it is sustainable.
Right, yeah. But also, if it's not just you that needs the show notes too. If the show notes aren't there, then you tend to ramble, and I tend to not cut in, and so it just becomes Scott talking the entire time. So it's like but there's maybe some other structure we could do.
Not only that, but you will ask insightful questions, and because if I don't have notes, I'm like, oh God, who said that? It was this person. And then I have to make a decision. Do I let it stand that we don't have the answer, or do I start Googling live while we're recording? And to tip my hat here, in college, I was on the radio in Ellensburg, Washington, and one of my best buddies and I started effectively a talk radio show. It was the same kind of vibe. Like, he was my buddy at the time, and we had fun talking. I was like, I think people would enjoy listening to us. But we didn't do the prep work, and it was bad. And after a few weeks, our program manager pulled us aside and very politely informed us that we would not be continuing the show. And he was right to do so. It was not a good show. So it's just one of those things, like, I am well aware that the kind of things that you can do in a casual conversation where it's just two buddies shooting the shit are not the same kind of things I'm comfortable doing when we're recording. You know, like, if I'm just talking to Chuck on the phone and I don't remember Chris Mellon's full job title, I could get away with telling Chuck, I forget, he had some high-ranking position in the Department of Defense. And Chuck would nod and assume that I was right.
And I would never ask.
I don't feel comfortable saying that to an audience. Or I would be trying to remember a quote. Oh, yeah, he said something really cool. It was like, that's not good radio. It's not fun to listen to. Anyway, a combination of I've turned my hobby into a job, and it's a job that takes a stupid amount of work to get things done at a level that we feel comfortable producing. I love doing this. I don't want to stop, but I don't think we can keep doing it the way that we are currently doing it, especially if the topic is a bummer. It kind of brings me back to, like, what is the vibe of the show? The vibe of the show is two friends getting excited about something, in this case, UFOs. That's what matters. If any part of that is off, if it's not the two friends, if we're not excited, you know, if it's not UFOs, I guess maybe it doesn't have to be about UFOs, but, like, that's the core of the show. Two friends getting excited. And if I'm not excited, I'm not bringing the right vibe to it.
Right. So, this is funny because, Scott, say what you said about looking at the news immediately after we talked. You said immediately after we talked Friday.
UFO news.
Yeah.
That's adorable. I assumed you meant like CNN. I'm like, I don't know, man. The news is really depressing right now. Are you sure? No, I told Chuck that after we talked, and you already know what this episode is about because you've seen the title. We're going to take a hiatus. Once Chuck and I talked and we came to that decision, it was an immediate weight off my shoulders. And I mean immediate, because what I was supposed to be doing at that moment was preparing show notes, and instead I got to go play video games. So it was a very good feeling. But, you know, like this morning I got online, I'm, you know, going through my UFO tabs like I do every day to, you know, see what's going on. And a few things are in there. I'm like, ooh, that would be fun to talk about and stuff. Like, so
of course.
Yeah, the instant it stops being a chore, you can get enthusiastic about it again.
Yeah. So what do you think it would take to make the show sustainable?
Well, let's pause on that for a second, because I want to talk about what we're doing right now.
Okay.
So I don't know what we're doing next.
Okay.
So the easiest way to say what we're doing next is we're taking a hiatus. When I talked to Chuck about it, he mentioned that his wife, Erica, always tells him, like, you should take a 3-month break over the summer from whatever you're doing. And that is great advice. It's impractical in many ways for, you know, things like our day jobs, but it's absolutely true. You need time away from the thing you love to rediscover what you love about it. And to be clear, I am experiencing burnout across my life right now. In addition to the podcast, I run a CSS newsletter. In addition to that, I am the DM in a D&D campaign that's about to hit 10 years in length.
Wild.
You know, I do a lot of creative writing. And just like I've done with the podcast, I've turned all of these into work somehow for me. And
well, except you.
And I think one of the things that was, well, I'm taking a hiatus from D&D also.
Yeah.
You know, like I think what I realized is I've turned them all into jobs, and I need to disconnect from all of them and find what I'm enthusiastic about it and come back to them in a more sustainable way. The newsletter is as tight as it can be, and I make a little bit of money on that, so I'm happy to keep doing that the way it is. my creative writing, I'm kind of just taking a break from it, and I'll come back to it when I'm feeling enthusiastic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
D&D, I took months off. We had a guest DM. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of feeling excited about it, and I'm coming back, and I'm going to run it in a different way. Something similar needs to happen with the podcast. I'm not done with this podcast, but I don't know what that looks like moving forward. So for the audience, is this a 3-month break? Is it a 3-week break? Is it an indefinite break? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
When we come back, will it be because we're back every 2 weeks and we're back on schedule? We had a break and we're re-energized? Will it look like, hey, we're going to record less frequently and only when there's something exciting to talk about? We're going to talk about another possibility later. Maybe we're going to bring someone else in on the show who's going to change the way we do the show. And it just looks different moving forward. I don't know the answer to that. What I know is the way we're doing it now isn't sustainable, and something's got to give. And for the moment, what's got to give is the show as a whole is taking a break.
Yeah.
And when we figure out how to make it sustainable, we will be back.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at. Does that kind of match what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's fine. What do you want to do? So we were collecting a bunch of questions earlier, and we're starting to answer them, and we're like, wait, hang on, this is the show. So one of the questions we came up with is, what are we doing with Discord? I assume we're leaving it open.
100%.
Okay.
Discord is free.
Yeah.
Actually, I shouldn't even be talking about it. Discord was your baby.
No, that's true.
But the way you always presented it to me was people were reaching out to you and saying, I need people to talk to about this. I don't have anyone. It's fun listening to you guys. And you set this up. It was your thing. You championed it. And you were very clear from the get-go. This should not be locked behind a paywall. This should be open to anyone. Even if the show ended tomorrow, I don't think we're shutting down the Discord.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess the other question is, are you still going to be in there? Do you use it? Do you enjoy it?
I have mixed feelings about Discord. First of all, I don't really use Discord, so I check it once a day.
Oh, okay.
But I have not been a large participant in it. I'll like a post, I'll share a link every now and then, but mostly I haven't been. But I'll be honest with that, most of that was because it felt weird for me to be in there sharing links when I'm also the one recording the show that theoretically is the reason everyone joined this Discord. So I was happy to let it be more of a community space that was not driven by whatever Scott's looking at the moment. I also didn't want to tip my hand like, oh, Scott's going to talk about this week, or Scott already told us how he feels about this. Maybe that's different if we're taking a pause on the show. Maybe I will post a little more, but
now you've got no outlet.
The community is for the community. It's not come see what Scott has to say.
Yeah. I mean, now you've got no outlet. So I have a suspicion that you'll start posting somewhere.
It could be.
The more real, one of the words you said in there is Discord is free. Well, there's two things that aren't free. There's Descript, our recording software, which we'll probably need to, I'll need to look into pausing or canceling, but that we should probably, I mean, I don't know what to do with Patreon. Obviously, people are welcome to unsubscribe. We're not going to do anything for a bit. What I'm wondering about is whether I should pause everyone.
Let's tip our hands a little bit here for a moment and talk about financials.
Yeah.
We don't run ads.
Yeah.
We never have. That's not our goal. We're not trying to get rich. We set up a Patreon specifically to say, hey, if you like the show and you want to help offset the costs of doing so, here's a way that you can support us.
Yeah.
And a few of you have done that. We've always been grateful. We're currently at a point where the amount of money that we get from Patreon every month pretty much perfectly offsets the costs of doing the show, which, full disclosure, at the moment consists entirely of Descript, the software we use to edit the podcast. So, we don't have any other expenses.
There's one other cool thing that I forgot to mention to you the other day. We have officially caught up even with the backlog. So there was a time when Patreon wasn't bringing in enough money to cover Descript. And now Patreon overcovers Descript a little, just a little bit. Right. But yeah, we made $684 over the last 3 years.
La-di-da. Yeah. So to answer your question for the audience, if you are a Patreon member, please don't feel obligated to continue supporting us on Patreon while we are not producing episodes. Yeah. I get it. Nobody's going to be upset. That said, I don't know how long the break's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like when we come back. So please make your own decision. Do not worry about the costs. You know, if deciding whether or not to keep our Descript subscription is a decision we will make on our own, independently of if every single one of you paused your Patreon subscriptions tomorrow. That would be okay. We would figure things out on our
own. What I'm really thinking about is it feels like what we should do is like downgrade everyone to a free account. And that also relieves the burden on us to like come back. We want to, but it feels weird to me to still accept money while we're paused.
I hear you.
I don't know.
Here's what I will say to you, Chuck, and I don't know how much the audience knows this. Editing, Patreon, Descript, and Discord are all things that I am very hands-off with. Chuck has handled those, and for the entire duration of the show, we've had a pretty clear division of labor where I do the show prep, Chuck and I show up when we record together, and Chuck handles the editing. And as other things got added, he has taken those things on, which I've been very grateful for because I don't want to learn how to edit. I don't want to manage a Discord community. So he's done a great job. So I trust your gut on this. Okay. If you think, forcibly downgrading everybody is the way to go, that makes sense to me. I certainly don't want anybody to find out they have been subscribing to a podcast that was not producing and get upset about it.
Yeah.
I also wonder if you downgrade people, if someone's going to come back and go, actually, I want to keep paying because I like you. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So I could see a case either way. I defer to you, Chuck, on the right way to handle it.
Yeah, I think I'll downgrade everyone. We achieved an important milestone, which was Patreon was built to cover our costs, and it did.
It did.
Job done, I think.
Yeah, which was great because we were willing to spend a little bit of money out of pocket to make this happen just because we liked doing it. But it was awesome to have it get to the point where it was not costing us money to do it. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and we can...
So anybody who has been a Patreon subscriber in the past, even if you pause it starting today, thank you so much. We're incredibly grateful.
Seriously. So, okay. I want to get back to the question of, like, what would it take to make it sustainable?
So here's the thing. The obvious answer is stop writing a research paper every 2 weeks. The reason I'm hesitant to say that is, as I mentioned, I have experience running an underprepared show in college, and it was a disaster. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you have heard occasional moments where Chuck has caught me off guard with a question, and you've heard me kind of stammer and go, oh, God, I wish I had written that quote down, or I can't remember who it was. I hate those moments. And if they don't bother you, the audience, that's awesome, but I would never feel good about it. So maybe it doesn't need 6 hours of show prep and a literal script that is produced. I am willing to admit I have been over preparing the show, but I can't imagine what it looks like to do less. And that's part of why I want to take this hiatus, is to take some time to think about how could we come back. One of the things we struggled with in the very early days of the podcast was our scripts were a lot less structured, and I would just talk and talk and talk and talk. And it took us a long time to realize that part of the problem is when you're talking in person, you pause for a beat and the other person has a chance to jump in. And if they don't, maybe you keep talking. And in radio, we're trained not to have dead air.
Right.
So I would be talking, and I would pause for a beat. Chuck wouldn't say anything, and I would keep talking. But we're recording over the internet, and there is just a little bit of lag. And often, by the time Chuck heard the gap, I have already moved on, so he wouldn't talk. So we had to start being very intentional about putting breaks into the show notes. They're like, Chuck should talk here. And because Chuck is very ADD, he often would kind of panic at seeing just a blank line where he had to say something and had to think on the spot. So we've landed in this world that I think records very well, where it's over prepared. We make a script, we write the questions, we write our reactions, we often have the jokes prepared ahead of time. And there's a little bit of riffing on the day of, but we're pretty by the book on the script. So what does it look like to ramp that back? The reason I'm bringing that up is that was something we really struggled with at the time. I think we're a little better about that now. We now have 2.5 years of practice recording together. We have a better sense of what it looks like to talk and let the other person talk. Although I will be curious when Annie listens to this episode if she's like, yeah, I could tell you guys were unscripted because you would not shut the fuck up and couldn't get a word in edgewise.
I mean, it's possible, but I added a bunch of spots in our notes. So
it's true. You did on your own. So a question you have been asking me for years is, what if there was someone to help you with the show notes? And I always said no.
Yeah, because you don't know how it would work.
Yeah, so 2 reasons. 1, I don't know how it would work, and 2, we can't pay someone. Like we didn't have enough money to cover our Descript subscription. There's no way we could pay someone to do actual work. And I would feel terrible asking someone to do it unpaid. It's one thing for me and Chuck to do it for the love. It's another thing to bring someone else in to do actual work.
It's not strictly true. Like we could pay someone a tiny amount. And
well, so here's the thing. You said that to me, and I was surprised by that. So I don't know how much we want to tip our hands here, but in a nutshell, you were telling
in a
me
nutshell,
there could hey, everybody drink. You were telling me there could be a budget for this, which I had never even considered. And given that I had just talked to Chuck and we had made the decision, okay, we're going to take a break. We are already going to stop doing the show the way we're doing it. For the first time, I was able to kind of think about it and go, what would it look like? And I think maybe there is a world where someone comes in who is sort of a producer, sort of an assistant type role that would be working closely with me, probably in a Google Doc. It's like, hey, can you please go gather this quote, or, watch this video and pull out the relevant bits. Like, here's a bundle of links. Can you please pull a few things out? Just doing some of the time consuming work that went into it. The end result is still going to be massaged and polished by me and Chuck. That's just the way that we work. I don't think that would ever change. But there's probably a world where we pull back from the overproduced, fully scripted nature that we've fallen into. And somebody else comes in from the opposite end to do some of the supporting work on the back end. And as a result, that 6 hours of work kind of gets compressed from both ends to something that's more manageable and less overwhelming every 2 weeks when I sit down. There was also a fantasy I had at one point, like, maybe it becomes a community-driven thing. There's like a wiki page, but I think that's probably a little too crazy. But to answer your question, to be clear, we are not saying this is happening. But Chuck asked me, what would it take to make the show sustainable? This is maybe a way that it could happen. If there was someone out there who would be interested in doing this kind of behind-the-scenes prep work, working closely with me every couple of weeks on a Google Doc to prepare for the show, there's room for
Mm-hmm.
that, and there might be a budget for it. I don't know what that budget is. It's something we could talk about. So I'm going to stop talking now, Chuck, because this was kind of your
Yeah.
idea, but that's kind of where I'm at on it. What do you think about it?
I think that's a super interesting idea. I still think that it's I wonder if there's something even smaller, like uh if if Discord or whoever helped us find the big story, the most exciting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a research assistant helped us find like two quotes that are supportive and two quotes that were counter. Um and it was very formulaic like that. How would that we would lose that sort of like narrative arc that you always try and build in,
Yeah.
but it would be very easy. I don't know. How does that feel?
Yeah. My gut reaction is I don't like it, but
Yeah.
I want to be very clear. We are in a anything's on the table
Okay.
mode at the moment. What'll it look like when we come back? Maybe it is something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know. I think you hit the nail on the head, though, when you said something that has always been fairly important to me is I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller. And I don't want to just regurgitate an article to you. You know, we've done that a handful of times, but mostly if we're talking about something, I want to talk about the why. Why
Mm-hmm.
should you care about this? And you heard it earlier when I was talking about the Wall Street Journal story. We wouldn't just do an episode on, hey, the Wall Street Journal wrote this article. It's a why should you care about
Right.
this? And why is this arguably not a believable narrative that the Pentagon is spinning?
Yeah.
And who do we know that says things that lead us to believe? Like, there's a kind of a through line there that I think makes these stories easier to listen
Mm-hmm.
to. And that's important to me. But if I had to boil the show down to its absolute core essence, it's two buddies who are excited to talk to each other.
Right.
So everything else is up for negotiation.
Interesting. Okay.
I have my preferences, but that doesn't necessarily, if it was a choice between doing the show in a way that isn't quite what I would have imagined, but lets us do it and stay true to the core vibe,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everything's on the table.
All right. Well, Discord, you heard the man. If I'm gonna work on pausing Patreon and Descript, but if Discord comes up with a proposal, or if someone in our audience pops in and is like, "Hey, I am a producer. I already do podcasts, and I enjoy this enough that I want to help out," let us know. We'll try and yeah, we can. I'll try and do the Patreon and Discord or Descript stuff in a reversible manner. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So one last question. What if it
Mhm.
was a different topic? How does that change things?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because back when we were first setting up the show, we were trying to figure out the
Mm,
name, and I need to be clear, it was Annie's idea. It's a great
that's
name.
great.
I love
Yeah.
it. But something that was important to us was that it was not a UFO
Yeah. Right.
themed name because when we started, we weren't sure if we had enough UFO stuff to talk
Yeah.
about. We were open to the idea that the core thing about this show is two buddies talking about what they're excited about.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, there was a period of time where Chuck got really into artisanal denim.
Yeah.
And I was his tolerant friend at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about denim. Chuck, what's new in the world of denim
Yeah.
this week?
Now I tell you what, I am into something very proximate, but I'm really into UFO shaped drums, and I talk
Oh,
Scott's ear
perfect.
off all the time about that.
Also, keyboards.
Yeah, puzzles.
Yeah.
Like if you look at my desk, it's just all like past passions, but also the
Chuck
games. Yeah,
taught me how to do Rubik's
yeah.
cubes.
Here's several of mine. I've got like 12 in the corner. There. The other thing that we frequently talk about is the games we're playing. You're playing Death Stranding right now, which lots of easy stories there. And we also talk about
Sure.
D&D. And we plan out
We do.
your sessions before the players get to. And part of the one of the problems we have here is that some of your players listen to the podcast, so
Yeah, it's
that
tricky.
could be a challenge. But
We can be like, Jed, stop listening.
yeah, you can only listen a week late.
Right. Um, yeah. So when we were initially floating the idea of a podcast, UFOs were an easy one because it was kind of a newer topic. We'd been having lunch and talking for many, many months or years at that point. And the most frequent topic of conversation between us is talking about work.
Yeah.
And we decided very quickly we probably shouldn't be frank about our opinions on the industry and our employers in a podcast.
Yeah, probably.
So work is off the table, even though obviously Chuck and I are both computer geeks and we work in the front end tech industry. D&D, gaming, another passion. I think the kind of original idea was if UFOs didn't stick or wasn't fun to talk about, we would maybe try a few other topics. Let's do a few episodes on denim. Let's do a few episodes on keyboards. Let's do a few episodes on games. The reason we didn't stick with that, A, is because UFOs were fun to talk about. And we did not run out of stuff to talk about. We still haven't, which is great. But also, it's tricky to build an audience when you change what you're talking about all the time.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we're like, what if we talked about D&D? And our UFO nerds in the audience are like, yeah, I don't think I would want to listen to that. That's fair.
I mean,
you didn't come here for that.
Discord, I want to know if that's the case, because I have a hypothesis that the folks in Discord do care about UFOs very deeply, but the amount of traffic we see in the space news and the web dev channel and some of the other channels makes me think that our audience is also multifaceted. So
yeah,
they might just.
I'm not opposed to geeking out about other stuff. I just don't want to pull a bait and switch on the audience.
For sure.
That's
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm eager to hear what Discord has to say. And it's good to know that you're open to other topics. I am too.
Yeah.
And I told Scott that when he proposed the hiatus, I was like, man, I'm not sad about like the amount of work going down, but I am sad that I don't get to shoot the shit with my buddy for like 2-3 hours every weekend or every other weekend. So so it's like we're gonna be talking anyways.
We'll definitely still be talking all the time. We just won't be recording.
Yeah, right. So let us know what you think. And if you have ideas, and I'll try and be super extra active in Discord this week. I hope you will.
Same.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't know how to dismount this show.
I mean, I think it's the same thing as always. You know, Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me pontificate about UFOs so she doesn't have to, even though she secretly does. Don't tell anyone.
All right. Well, it was good talking to you, man.
You too.
All right.